Alright, Shalom. First of all, I'm just going to start this lesson off by giving all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone. Honors to all the brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. And Shalom to all the sincere believers. Now, this is going to be a quick lesson, just based on the fact that it seems like Donald Trump and Elon Musk are having a fallout. And the reason why this is relevant is because this is just proof that the Lord is dividing these Edomites against each other. And there is an old saying in the world, together they stand, divided they fall. And the Lord is just dividing all these Edomites. There's just Edomites going against each other all across the board. And for me, and I'm sure for all the sincere brothers and sisters, it's a beautiful thing to see, because these Edomites, they cheered on our downfall, us the Israelites. They cheered on our downfall, so now we cheer on their downfall. And it's just that the scriptures talk about division. And we are in that day and age. We're in that time and season where there's going to be a lot of division amongst people. The love of many is going to wax cold. There's going to be a lot of violence. There's a lot of signs letting us know that we are in the last days. So through the Spirit, I'm going to get some precepts, and Lord's will, you're edified. Luke 12:51, suppose ye that I'm come to give peace on earth? I tell you nay, but rather division. And that's what the Lord is doing, especially when it comes to America. Because ever since Trump got in office, all his antics have been causing a lot of division. Like, he's pissed off majority of the countries of the world. They don't want to do business with America anymore. That's some division. Him and Elon Musk are having a fallout. That's division. You got people divided in the political sphere. Some people are totally okay with Trump and all the wild nonsense that he's doing, and then you have a lot of people on the opposite side who are like, yo, somebody needs to get this man out of office. He's gonna destroy the country. Which ultimately, those of us of the hopeful elect, we know this is the Lord's doing. And we know that America's going to get destroyed regardless of who's in that White House, because America is the most wicked place on the planet, and the Lord is going to nuke this place off the face of the earth. So it doesn't matter whether Kamala was in the White House or Trump or anybody else. The end of America is still going to happen. But yeah, there's just so much division going on, and the division is going to get worse. You have all of these, like what people would consider natural disasters happening. You got wildfires happening, tornadoes happening, earthquakes. Apparently we're in hurricane season now, and Trump has been cutting funding to FEMA, and there's another organization, but I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, FEMA and another organization that was created to help people in the events of natural disasters. And so if staff is getting cut and funding's getting cut for these organizations that were created to help people in the event of a natural disaster, like a major earthquake or a tornado or something like that, then people can't get the help that they need, which is going to result in more deaths, more very, very pissed off people, because their loved ones are not going to be able to get the help that they need, and it's going to, it's just going to cause everything to spiral even more out of control. And then you have the people who did not vote for Trump that are telling the people who did, hey, this is what you voted for. You voted for this guy. You were warned ahead of time that if he got in office, he was going to tear this country apart. He was going to dismantle all of it. Like, he wants to take apart the Department of Education and all of this. It's like, the people who did not vote for Trump are pissed off at the people who did, because they're like, listen, this is all your fault. You voted for him, you know? So you can't, now y'all want to cry about it when he's doing exactly the sort of thing that he was saying during the election. The things that he said he was going to do, he's now actually doing. And now y'all are acting all surprised. Trump wants to get rid of Medicaid and Medicare and SNAP benefits and all of this, which, funny enough, these Edomites, these so-called self-proclaimed white people, are the majority of people who are on these different benefits. Social Security and SNAP and all of this, food stamps and all of that. They're the main ones on it. But yet they voted for the guy who was going to destroy all of that. And then they want to sit there and talk about that's not what they voted for. But that's exactly what they voted for, because you voted for a man who told you during the election that he was going to dismantle all of these things. And now that he's actually doing what he said he was going to do, now all of a sudden it's a problem. But if you would have been paying attention, you would have understood that that's what he was going to do. And a lot of people are saying that those who voted for Trump didn't vote for him because they thought that he was going to, bring back jobs and things like that. They did it because they ultimately are racist. Because Trump, he's definitely a racist. So that's why they voted for him. They expected Trump to make America white. That's what they wanted. Get rid of everybody who's not white, who's not an Edomite, And if they can't get rid of them, just, make their life a lot more difficult. That's why Trump was getting rid of the DEI. Now jobs don't have to hire people that aren't Edomites. You got this whole thing going on currently with Harvard. Trump against Harvard now. Harvard, the college, I believe it is, the university. Because Trump wants more Edomite, or what, simple people would say, wants more white people to go to Harvard instead of these foreign kids who come over here. So that's really what it was all about. Those who voted for Trump really voted for him out of their hatred for every other ethnicity of people. Because these Edomites run around talking about how they believe that they are, so superior to everybody else, but yet in the same breath they're complaining that they're afraid that they're getting pushed out the way. There's more diversity in these jobs. It's not just white men and women everywhere you go in these different businesses. You're going to see some so-called black people. You're going to see some so-called Latinos. You're going to see some, some so-called Asians and things like that. And these Edomites, they don't like that. They do not like that. But what these Edomites don't understand is that the Lord is going to phase them out anyway. So everything that's happening is meant to happen. And these Edomites, they're scared because they see themselves getting phased out, and they're scared, and they're blaming it on everybody else. They don't understand that the Lord gave them, and when I say them, I mean these Edomites, these so-called self-proclaimed white people. The Lord gave them a time to rule. And now that time is very quickly coming to an end. And that's why all of this is happening to these Edomites. That's why this downfall of Edomites is happening. you know, so-called black people and Latinos and Asian just everywhere, and then white people are going to get pushed out of the way. So that's why Edomites don't want to let go of that power seat, because they know that all it takes is one step, them getting removed from one area, and then it's just going to be a domino effect, and that scares them. And it's funny watching Edomites go against other Edomites and seeing that these Edomites are not even on the same page. And that's also part of why they're falling apart. Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they be agreed? And the answer is no. Two people can't walk together if the way that they think is too different. If I want to go one way and you want to go the other way, we can't walk together because we have two different thought processes. We have two different things that we want to do. Like, you wanting to go left is going to take you to one place. Me going right is going to take me to a different place. We're not going to go two different directions and end up at the same place. So that doesn't work. So basically, in regards to these Edomites, the ones who voted for Trump voted for one reason, and the ones who didn't vote for him voted for a different reason. At least that's the way they look at it. Slovakia. At least that's the way that they look at it. And that's division, a lot of people, there are a lot of Edomites out here that they don't like, the Edomites that voted for Trump, all this MAGA nonsense. There's a lot of Edomites that are like, yo, these MAGA people, they're making us look bad. And there's just a lot of division amongst these Edomites. Because ever since Trump got in office, there's a lot of Edomites that have just been showing their ass, really letting that hatred that they have for other ethnicities of people, letting that show. Because they feel safe now with Trump in office to do that. But then you have Edomites on the other side of things that are like, nah, you can't be doing that. And that's not how it used to be back in the day, So there's just a lot of division amongst these Edomites. And for me, and like I said, I'm sure for all you sincere brothers and sisters, it's a beautiful thing to see, our enemy, our chief enemy being these Edomites falling out. They're falling out, they're falling apart. And this is all part of the Lord's plan. Just have these Edomites divided on all fronts, whether they're here in America or anywhere else in the world. Because, even like the West itself is falling apart. The UK, Italy, France, Germany, the US, Canada, they're all falling apart. And it is a beautiful thing to see the Lord bringing down our enemies. Ecclesiasticus 25:7. There be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that have joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And right now, that's what we're witnessing. The fall of our enemy, our chief enemy, being these Edomites, these so-called self-proclaimed white people. They're divided against each other, and that's just going to aid in their own downfall. Like I said, like I mentioned that old saying, together they stand, divided they fall. When these Edomites were all on the same page, going against everybody else, they were a lot stronger. But now that they're divided against each other, it's not that simple anymore. because there's things that some Edomites are going for that others are not. And then you have a lot of these Edomites, whether they be men or women, who are with, a so-called black person or a so-called Latino person or a so-called Asian person, married to them, have kids with them. And then you have these Edomites on the other side who are like, oh, everything just needs to be white, and it's like, nah, like, like, that's not how this works. So it's like there's just so much division amongst them, even though, of course, an Edomite man having kids with any other ethnicity, those are Edomite children. There's no such thing as mixed. You are what your father is, and a lot of people don't understand that. And if an Israelite man, a so-called black man, if he has kids with any other ethnicity, those children are an Israelite because of who their father is. But once again, a majority of people, they don't understand that. But yeah, like, there's just so much division amongst these Edomites, and this whole Elon and Trump fallout that's happening is just evidence that that division is even at the top. It's not just just your regular everyday Edomites that are falling out with each other. It goes even higher than that. And that's how you know that these Edomites, their time is really almost up. Their downfall, their ultimate downfall, is right around the corner. And Tawadi Yahal Bashim Yah was shy for that. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. In closing, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakudash. Tawadi Yahal Bashim Yah Shai for putting his spirit on me to do this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to our brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. And shalom to all the sincere believers. Hope you stay strong, stay safe, stay fervent, stay circumspect, stay prayed up. Adawan Ratazah. Till next time, shalom.